Hello, I'm Dr. Rosie Kuhn. You probably already knew that. Hey, I mentioned that I'm going to be doing a short 8-minute sort of cliff notes on the lives that I do on Thursdays at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. A lot of times those hour-long lives aren't conducive to your timing, and or you're just not interested in watching that much information. Uh, and so what I'm doing is going to be doing sort of a cliff note, gist of synopsis of those of each of the lives. So today I'm doing the gist. We haven't got the name yet, so you're going to hear it all. The gist or the synopsis of the live YouTube that I did on Dark Night of the Soul. So spirituality and Dark Night of the Soul. So this is about 8 minutes. That's the plan, is to be much more short and concise. So what I want to share with you is, number one, what is it, and what is a Dark Night of the Soul, and how do you know that you're in it? Now that is a week-long podcast, whatever, and I've actually created a lot of information in the podcast, Spiritual Immersion, Taking the Plunge. And you can find that on any platform that plays podcasts. So that's Spiritual Immersion, Taking the Plunge. There are 100 podcasts, videos on that, or video podcasts on that subject, Spiritual Immersion, Taking the Plunge. So that is a really good resource. Dark Night of the Soul is basically when we come to a crisis of meaning, a crisis of faith, a physical crisis basically, and where we can't get out of our circumstances that feel so terrible and horrible. Quite often it feels like you're in hell and there's no way out. Quite often you might be sleepless. A lot of doctors and psychologists might say that you're depressed, but it's not necessarily a diagnosis, a mental disorder. In fact, most of the time it is not. It is a part and parcel of the fact that we are spiritual beings in this human experience. And if we may need a nudge or a 2x4 upside the head to get us immersed in the process of discovering and exploring who we are truly in these bodies, that we are more than just our ego self. So quite often in this dark night of the soul, where we have been focused on living in our reality that we live in, we might be taken into the basements of our reality, where we've been putting and stashing and storing situations and emotions that we haven't wanted to deal with. And so in these dark nights of the soul, we have to begin to face ourselves, and not face ourselves, but really be present to ourselves in a way that allows us to acknowledge and honor and respect and really get how amazing we are inside, how resilient we are, how courageous we are. And it takes courage and bravery and strength and conviction to move us through this process. There's no way around it. There's no medications that are going to fix this or heal this. This is a process. It's like being in a marathon, choosing to be in a marathon. And sometimes, but because we are these spiritual beings who's chosen this path of human experience, it's like a marathon, and we're in it, and we got to keep going. So it might be painful, it might be exhausting, it might be emotional, it might feel mentally crazy making, all of the above and more. And so it's just a matter of, quite often, of our situations that bring us to this. It might be, for instance, quite often recently with the COVID situation over the last couple of years, people have immersed themselves in the question of having to be with the uncertainty of reality. Quite often we think we're so safe and secure in the security in the situation, the environment we're in. But truly, when we get into situations of, for instance, a pandemic, we go, there's no certainty. And how do you live in the truth of that uncertainty? How do you live in the truth of nothing makes sense anymore? And so this process of the dark night is the process that each of us, most of us, really truly most of us, will go through once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. I don't know how many times, but it's part of for me, the human spiritual evolution. I myself have gone through 3 of them thus far. And most of them have been, all 3 of them were excruciating. But I call it exquisitely excruciating because something wonderful happens, and we have experiences within ourselves that we just never thought could be possible. And we survive, and not only survive, but we emerge into something more wonderful. It's like a caterpillar who goes into a chrysalis, and in that there's a mush, like there's nothing defining anymore about this being. And through that process of disidentifying, disengaging, distracting, contracting, all that stuff that happens, something else happens, and that there's an alchemical process that happens, and out comes this butterfly. So it's a whoopee at the end, but there's really no end, because we are eternal beings continually processing ourselves through this. I talk about this in Self-Empowerment 101. I have a boot camp for self-transformation. Link is below. Like I said, the spiritual immersion, taking the plunge podcasts are available. So those are 3 different supports. And I'm just going to give you a list of the to-dos that'll be really helpful for you if you are engaging in any degree of this process, and if you're questioning. So number 1 is get support, and be clear about the fact that quite often, if you see a therapist, psychologist, someone who's going to diagnose you, they may diagnose you with a mental disorder, as opposed to seeing that this is a spiritual issue and an evolution of who you are. And so that you're not sick and crazy. And quite often people get medicated, and it takes them that much longer to move through this process. And being able to see and work with somebody that knows what you're going through. So there are spiritual guides around, spiritual coaches. There are people that specialize in spiritual immersion or emergence. The organization ASSIST is the American Center for the Integration of Spiritually Transformative Experiences. They have a lot of information, and a lot of therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists who work specifically with people with spiritual challenges. So that's one place. And just Google and see what comes up for you. If you believe it's a medical condition, or you're concerned it's a medical condition, check with your health practitioner to make sure that you don't have to worry about that. Quite often, part of a spiritual immersion process is feeling of dark night of the soul. Not only do you feel like your life is meaningless, or life in itself is meaningless, but you begin to feel symptoms. And the symptoms are your body's way of detoxing and releasing and moving through what no longer serves you. But we can sometimes think, gosh, I think I got a brain tumor, or I think my heart is gone, or you're going to feel things and symptoms and think you're sick. And so if you think you're sick, go get some medical support or support from your health practitioner to confirm that you're not sick, and that you're actually well. Eating well, drinking lots of water is really important. This is can be a very uncomfortable process, and you can ask how long it lasts, and it can last for days, weeks, months, years, and become a process that is lifetime, in a sense that we become aware of and the need for a consciousness and a conscious reflection time, so that we can stay current with what the circumstances are in our life and how we're moving through them as a spiritual being, as a human being. So it's a more conscious way of being in the world. And sometimes we need a big wake-up call to make that happen, a 2x4 upside the head. And the wisdom of no escape, quite often, I talk about these things in the book Self-Empowerment 101, where because we can't escape, we have to be in it. And quite often, contracting diseases or cancers are things that mean we have to be real present with our health and well-being, sometimes means that in that wisdom of no escape, we have to really focus on, here's how I'm going to get myself well. Not well just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Dr. Kelly Turner writes a book called Radical Remissions. It's about the 9 factors for that people have used to cure their cancers. And it's an excellent book. I recommend it for everyone, whether you have cancer or not. That is the book, I think, that really can address some of the issues that I'm talking about here. So it's going to be uncomfortable. So make yourself comfortable in many ways. Drink lots of water, eat good food, whatever that means to you. It's important to have some distractions. And what I kind of was able to do was bookends my process, because I was really fortunate to be able to do that, because I was conscious enough this past time that I did it, was in it, was, in the morning I would wake up and I would make my coffee and I would sit with my books and I would do reflections, I would do prayer, I would be in it for about an hour of that kind of reflection time. A lot of writing. And then I would start my day, I would see clients. I was able to do that. Some people can't in terms of the depth of their process, but I was able to see 1 or 2 clients a day. I would go for a walk. So being out in nature is really, really important. Having pets, or if you can't get outside, get plants or a fish or something that is nature that you can bring into your life. Or watching nature shows on Netflix or wherever is really, really helpful as well. So being outside in nature is really important. And exercise is really important, whether it's yoga, whether it's walking outside, whatever it works for you is really important to have your body moving, because what we're doing is detoxing energies, cellular memory that we don't even think about. And is just part of our stuff that we need to release. So being in nature is, for me, the most important. If you live in a city, go to a park or go sit next to a tree or something like that, to where you can immerse yourself. And I'm saying 2 things: go sit next to a tree, but you have to walk to get to that tree. So being outside, walking is really important. Listen to the birds, or go sit by some water feature so that you're hearing water. I have aquariums around me, and so I see water and fish moving within my house, and I've got ponds outside. So I've got a lot of water features that help and make me feel calm when I'm distressed or in these processes. So drink water. Another thing is rest. I need to rest. I mean, it's not only sleeping at night, because quite often part of this process is you can't sleep at night. You've got processes that are happening. And for me, they happen quite often during the middle of the night. That's when I was most in a reflective. It's almost like God would wake me up and say, okay, come on, we're going to go. We're going to do some work here. And it's like having an inner therapist that would sit with me, and we would work things through, get to the meaning, get to the heart of situations and truths within myself. So I would take naps, and sometimes I take a nap in the morning and a nap in the afternoon, because this is such a process that is really requiring a lot of energy and focus on our side. And so we need the rest. So every way that you can do that. So breathing, notice where you're holding your breath. Breathing is a good thing. I find work is really important, and that work can be in the garden. The work can be, like for me, I would work with my clients, or so if you can work, that's a great thing. I was able to work the first time I went through this, one of the first times I went through this, I would work part-time and then I would go home. because that's all I could do to function. But work, or the sense of accomplishment, the sense of doing something where you go, wow, I did something. It might be cleaning the kitchen. It might be getting the laundry done. It might be getting yourself something to eat. Those may be the work that you do to get through this time, or to move through this time. I don't want to see like, you're in a dark night of the soul, you're in a situation and now you're out. It's like a progress where we're moving ourselves through this and learning lifelong processes, and becoming more aware that this is an ongoing unfolding and an ongoing expansion of who you are in your expression of yourself, and your willingness to own who you are and accept who you are and love and appreciate who you are, respect and trust this. It's all part of what that is. It's really important to have some sort of creative endeavors. In the times that I've been in my, especially when I went through my most recent dark night of the soul, I wrote a lot. I wrote probably 5, 6 different books through that process. So writing was really important. Painting has become really important. Acrylic painting has become really important. And I paint fun things like this. The next Easter project I'm doing for my grandson. So fun things. I knit, crafts, being with horses, being with animals, whatever is a creative endeavor for you. That's a really important thing. And you go, I don't want to create. I don't know how to do that. It's one of those things that it's, I mean, almost every mental health center has creativity as part of the program, because it's so important for us to engage in creativity. We know who we are. We are part of creation. We are part of universal source of all that is. We are creation in process. And so when we create, we feel that sense of fulfillment on a deep, deep level. So I highly recommend to all my clients to find that creative outlet, no matter what it is. It's really important. And again, get support from people who can understand and accept and appreciate what you're going through, rather than hiring a therapist and they don't even know what you're talking about. Quite often in the training of therapists and psychologists, there is no place in that where spiritual issues are part of the learning. So make sure that when you get, wherever you go to get that you are being supported by people that understand and appreciate and respect what you're going through. I would love if you leave a comment below if you've had experiences as with this dark night of the soul, or this crisis of meaning or crisis of faith. Leave below your experience and or what helped you through this, or maybe who helped you through this. So maybe there are organizations that can be helpful. 12-step programs of all sorts. Quite often our dark night of the souls can be connected to some sort of addiction that we may not be recognizing, or that we've been denying. And so when we can acknowledge that, 12-step programs can be really, really, really helpful and supportive. That's it for now. If you, again, Assist is a great place, ACISTE.org, assist.org, the American Center for Spiritually Transformative Experiences. And there's others. Just Google Dark Night of the Soul or support for spiritual emergence processes, and you'll find support. And that's what we need. All right. That's it for now. It's a gist, but it's a longer gist. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.